Hello, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to demystify one of the most popular and most powerful programming languages on the planet, Python. If you've ever been curious about coding but had no idea where to even begin, well, you've come to exactly the right place. We're starting from square one.
So let's just jump right in with a quick question. Think about cutting-edge artificial intelligence, all that complex machine learning that's changing the world and even the websites you browse every single day. What do they all have in common?
You guessed it, they're all powered in some way by Python. It's this incredible engine running behind the scenes of so much modern technology. But here's the kicker. This massively powerful tool is also one of the easiest languages for a total beginner to pick up.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll cover why you should even learn Python. Then, we'll get into the fascinating topic of how computers actually understand us. After that, the fun part, we'll write our very first line of code, learn how to store information using things called variables, and finally, we'll touch on the different types of data you'll be working with.
Okay, first things first. Why Python? I mean, there are tons of programming languages out there, so what makes this one so special, especially for people who are just starting out?
Well, it really boils down to a few things. For starters, the way you write Python is just simple. It reads a lot like plain English, which is a huge plus. It's also totally free and open source. You'll often hear it called a high-level language, which is just a fancy way of saying it was designed for humans to read and write easily. And of course, it's incredibly versatile. It's used for AI, data science, building websites, you name it. It's pretty much the perfect starting point.
So, we know Python is easy for us to read. But how do we use it to actually give instructions to a computer? This really gets to the core of what programming is all about.
Here's the most important thing to wrap your head around. Computers don't speak English. They don't understand words. Deep down, at their most basic level, they only understand on and off, which we represent with ones and zeros. That's it. So, how in the world do we bridge that gap between our language and theirs?
The solution is actually pretty brilliant. We use a translator. We write our instructions in a high-level language like Python, one that's easy for us. Then, a program on the computer called an interpreter translates our code into the low-level language of ones and zeros that the machine can finally understand and execute.
All right, that's enough theory for now. It's time for that magical rite of passage for every new coder. It's time to write your very first program. It's a tradition, and it's called Hello World.
Now, to do this, all you need to do is open something called a code editor. You can think of it as just a plain text editor, but for code. And once you're in there, you just have to type one simple command. That's it. Seriously, print hello world. Just look at how readable that is. There are no crazy symbols, no confusing jargon. It's an instruction, print, and then in parentheses, what you want it to print.
And when you run that single line of code, this is what you get. The words hello world appear on your screen. And just like that, congratulations, you are officially a programmer. You've given the computer an instruction, and it listened.
So what exactly did we just use? We used something called a function. In Python, print is a built-in command, and its one job in life is to take whatever you put inside those parentheses and show it on the screen. It's a super fundamental tool you'll use all the time.
Okay, so printing things to the screen is cool. But what if we want to hold on to some information to use later? That leads us to maybe the single most important concept in all of programming, variables.
Now, the textbook definition of a variable is a name given to a memory location in a program. But, that's a little dry and not super helpful. So let's think about it in a much simpler way.
I want you to imagine that your computer's memory is like a huge open field of land. When you create a variable, it's like you're sticking a sign in the ground, claiming a little plot of that land and giving it a name. Then you can store whatever you want on that plot. Let's look at some actual code. Here we've created a variable called name, and we've stored the text Shraddha in it. We made another one called age and put the number 23 there, and a third called price with the value $25.99. That equal sign is key. In programming, it's called the assignment operator. It means take the thing on the right and store it in the box labeled with the name on the left.
Now, you might have noticed that when we stored a name, an age, and a price, we were actually storing different kinds of information, right? Text is different from a whole number, which is different from a decimal. Python is smart enough to automatically understand these different categories, and we call them data types. First up, we have this string. A string is just a fancy name for any piece of text, a word, a sentence, anything like that. The one golden rule you have to remember is that strings always go inside quotation marks. Our hello world was a perfect example of a string.
Next up, we've got integers. This one's super simple. It's just a whole number. It can be positive, negative, or 0, as long as there's no decimal point. So that age variable we created, the number 23, that's an integer.
And finally, what if you do have a decimal point? Well, for that, we use a float. A float is simply any number that has a decimal part. So our price variable, $25.99, is a float. It's as simple as that.
So let's just recap that real quick. If it's text, it's a string. If it's a whole number, it's an integer. And if it has a decimal, it's a float. Getting a handle on these three basic types is a huge step, because they are the fundamental building blocks of almost everything you'll do.
And believe it or not, just like that, you've pretty much learned the absolute core concepts you need to start your journey with Python. You know how we talk to computers, you've seen how to write your first command, and you know how to store different kinds of information. That is a massive accomplishment.
So we'll leave it there. You've officially learned the basics of how to communicate with a computer and how to manage information. From here, the possibilities are, well, they're basically endless. So the only real question left is, what problem are you going to solve first?